Let's talk to Dr. Tony Ofoeto, Director General of the International Institute of Professional Security. He joins us virtually. Good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
Let's look at this from first the diplomatic front. Several attempts are being made by various players, the Israelis, some of the Middle Eastern countries like Qatar and South Africa, and now you have the Indonesian leader flying to Ukraine and Russia next week to try to discuss peace. The most successful of all the efforts have come from Turkey, which actually hosted peace talks a while back. But since then, no further successful efforts. To what do you put this?
Well, basically, from the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. If you remember, you would also have observed that the Russian government, Putin, had already laid before now conditions upon which the war will stop. And that has to do with exclusively and without compromise that Ukraine will not be part of NATO and, of course, by extension to EU. Now, Ukraine is definitely not going to accept that. That means that whatever that is being discussed as it is now is going to be a tall order, more so when assault had commenced. I think basically it's a serious battle between the EU, the United States, and also Russia. I just see Ukraine as a pawn, as it were. Ukraine is basically gaining the type of patronage and attention is gaining because of the strategic places occupying, especially with respect to EU security and stability of the EU region. That is why Ukraine is gaining the type of attention it's gaining. Ordinarily, what we expected before now was that it is such that either the US and Russia would have ordinarily come to understanding and terms as to the assaults wouldn't have even taken place in the first instance. But I see it as, the battle of the Bitwheat, wherein Ukraine is now the battlefield. And I don't know, for me as a person, I don't see the president of Ukraine really understanding it deeper than that. I think basically that is why you see this negotiation and the like still failing. But definitely for the negotiation to succeed and make any headway, there must be compromise. And the compromise most likely is going to come more from Ukraine. Don't forget that the EU is not ready to shift its ground on certain areas, but at the same time, they are not ready to compromise their economy, knowing full well that, for example, the issue of gas, gas and what do you call it now, petrol and all those stuff like that. Russia is standing at a very strategic position. All over the world now, the price of petroleum products have been pushed up. The economy of most of the countries, including EU, including America, is being adversely affected. Yes, agreed that in some other countries, the price of dollar per barrel has increased to an average of $120 per barrel and all those stuff like that. But the fact still remains that the intrusion of the economic interest vis-a-vis political military might and all those stuff is actually going to affect, in the long run, the assault that is on Ukraine as it is today. And that's just my simple position. And that is also one of the reasons why negotiation may take a tall order as it is now, because none of the parties are ready to bend or ready to shift for now. I hope that it won't extend more than this as it is.
Well, from what you've said, what I seem to have been able to glean is that it does seem that even though on the horizon there's no shifting of grounds by either party, and there are outside forces that are, affecting the decisions being made by those forces, including or especially in Ukraine. But that this economic impact that is being felt right across board, I mean, you talked about energy, you referenced energy, but then there is the one of food. My last guest was just talking about, I mean, if you take Africa, for example, that in Niger Republic, almost 90% of what Niger consumes by way of sunflower oil comes from Ukraine. Benin Republic is 76% and so on. So even if you just limit it to Africa, this is already having an impact. There are fuel queues in Nigeria right now, and the local aviation industry is suffering because of the price of aviation fuel. Diesel is about 850 naira. So already we too are feeling it. The loaf of bread that was 450 4 months ago is now almost 1,000 naira because of the price of wheat, amongst other things. So is this, do you think, enough leverage for people who were previously uninterested or who thought, well, it's Europe's problem, let them deal with it, will now get involved because the effect is coming to them also?
You know, for the first time in the world is really understanding the strategic role of Ukraine and even that of Russia. Before now, some of us have argued that, look, it will be very unfortunate for Europe to stand against Russia. Not necessarily because of the military might of Russia, but God has also endowed Russia, especially in the area of energy. The same thing God has endowed Ukraine, especially in the area of food and agriculture. Ukraine is supplying almost half of the grains you can talk of that is coming to Africa and all those stuff like that. The food chain that comes from Ukraine is something else, not just from you. Even in Europe there, you would have seen that the prices of food in Europe itself has increased astronomically. And that is why, if you look recently, the EU is saying that we are granting the candidacy membership or in probation now. It will be discussed between, I think, on the 23rd and on the 24th of June to determine whether it's actually going to be approved or not. But it's been suggested, and it's also, to some extent agreed. But whether majority of the countries will agree is another thing. Don't forget that EU has 750 seats. And anytime a new member comes, population is always a major factor. Ukraine has about a 40 million population. Now that means that it will also affect the seats. Nobody wants to lose seats. Nobody wants to lose power, because when you lose seats in EU, it also means that you lose power to some extent. That is why you see that a country like Turkey has been a candidate member of EU since 1999. Until today, they are not full members yet. Now you are not talking of Ukraine coming in as a candidate member of EU. Now at the end of the day, what happened is that national interest first, even before regional, continental, or international interest, as it were. And that is why you see that ordinarily there's nothing that stops NATO before now admitting Ukraine. Ukraine has applied for membership of NATO for decades, and it's more or less like KIB, until the issue of the threat where Russia feels that, look, they also have to protect themselves. EU is moving very close to, NATO is moving too close to Ukraine, and Ukraine is so strategic because once Ukraine become a member of either NATO or EU, it means that all its artilleries, all machineries, all weapons and the like now can be domiciled in Ukraine. And the proximity of Ukraine to Russia, I'm sure you know it, is as good as the proximity of what you call it, of maybe a Canada to a US, or maybe a Brazil to a US, and all those stuff like that. Now, that is one of the mindsets, apart from the fact that Putin also has his own, expansionist philosophy, as it were. Don't forget that since the era of the USSR and the disintegration of the Soviet Union, Putin has strategically and over the years been building its own weapon, and artillery has been building itself in such a manner that as we speak today, that is one of the reasons why NATO, EU find it very reluctant to come all out, to say we are supporting the way they ought to support. Don't forget that there was a time that Zelensky was pleading that they should kindly put a no-flight ban. And unfortunately, they did it. And because Putin made it very clear that when you do that, you become an enemy of Russia. And once you become an enemy of Russia, it becomes something else. Now, EU and NATO, they are trying to prevent a full-blown scale war. But if you look at now, as we speak, Russia has also come out to say that by the end of this year, they are going to launch their most recent nuclear, nuclear head or so. Just to bring the consciousness to NATO and to EU that if you take any step that is beyond the line that we have drawn, we are also ready. The truth is, no country is ready as I speak today to go into full-scale war, not minding that Russia is actually mobbed on the provocative end. But I think if you ask me that, I think Ukraine should really look at the bigger picture and the long-run advantage. At the end of the day, yes, it will still come back to the negotiation table. There will still be compromises. Sanctions, as we speak now, not working the way it was to work against Russia. Sanction is not working because China is there in support of Russia. Today, China is buying 40% of its oil and energy from from Russia. India is neither here nor there. Of course, I'm sure you know his very good friend in North Korea too. So these are major factors that are going to sustain and help Russia as we speak. Now, if you are talking about SWIFT, if you are talking about all those international trans, don't forget that China is Russia himself has come to say, if you are not going to buy our product and everything we are selling with our own local currency, then forget it. Germany had a problem recently with them to the extent that Germany refused to stop buying oil from Russia. Now, these are things that will definitely frustrate the war against Ukraine, because if the whole NATO and the whole EU are all against the assault and the war and the incursion of Ukraine, what they ought to do is to totally isolate Russia. But totally isolating Russia will be a disservice to these countries and to the citizens of this country. And that is the quagmire that they are. And that is why, to me, as far as I'm concerned, I feel that it is imperative that, apart from asking Putin to stop this whole war, it is also imperative for them to look at areas where compromises can come. And it's only at that point in time we can be talking of peace. Because for now, it is as good as what Russia is seeing America doing in some other countries. And like, look, if you can protect yourself in other countries and you don't want adversary to move so close to you, why wouldn't we be able to do that? Why would you all gang up together against us and say we can't do that? And that is not the battle. I hope you understand that.
I do. Dr. Tony Ofeto, thank you so much. Dr. Ofeto is, of course, the Director General of the International Institute of Professional Security. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.